Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, it's like half vlog, half discussion video. I was flipping through my 101 horror novels to read before I'm murdered, and I came across this section. So we haven't done a video where all I do is read the entirety of an author, but there are author spotlights in here. And as I was flipping through, I noticed that I've read every book recommended that's like by Stephen Graham Jones, and all but one. But I just got the audiobook of Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones, which is the only one that I have yet to read. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, Alita, there's one that doesn't have a star rating. And that's because I read it in this vlog. I'll link it up here. But it was a recent vlog. I think it was O'Learium reading vlog. And it was a very short novella. Was it even a novella? I think it was just a short story. But I read it in one workout. So I was actually like working out. I'm gonna go check on that. Sorry if you can hear the dogs in the background. I had to go check out what my dog was barking about, but it turns out that there were just people playing in the street, like some teenagers or something, and my dog went crazy. But like I was saying, all of them have a star rating, and we're going to talk about every single book that I've read of Stephen Graham Jones's. It's really interesting just looking at the ratings, because he's either a real hit with me, like 5 stars, like absolutely love his stuff, or I hate his stuff and I don't know why anyone would like his books. So I'm going to put my rating for Attack of the 50-Foot Indian. I didn't like that one. But we also have Mapping the Interior, which it says a coming-of-age ghost story, haunted house. I also think that it's like, I think you follow a 15-year-old boy who goes into his house, and like the inside is bigger than the outside, and I'm not entirely sure, but the audiobook is only 2 hours, so I'm gonna take the opportunity. That's like 2 hours if you listen to it at 1.0 speed, which we all know I don't. So I'm thinking I'm going to start this audiobook, and I have some things on the computer that I need to actually put in the grade book. So while I'm doing that, I'll just be listening to Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones, and we will see. Right now it's just a mixed bag of we have some 1 stars, some 2 stars, some 3 stars, and some 5 stars. No 4-star yet. Maybe Mapping the Interior will be my 4-star for Stephen Graham Jones. about the barking, but yesterday I finished Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones, which was the last one that I still needed to read, and I am going to give it 3 stars. I think that I don't like horror novels that have to do with grief, and this has a lot to do with grief and seeing the ghost of his father. So you follow this 15-year-old boy who is seeing his father's ghost, and there's a lot of like emotion and a lot of grief behind it, but for some reason I always feel like I'm just standing watching the horror novels that are about grief, and like I just don't love it, but it was fine. So I think what we're gonna start with is there are 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 books here, all ranging from 1 star all the way to 5 star. I think the average is going to probably be like a 3 star because I have 2 5 stars, 2 1 stars, 2 2 stars, and 2 3 stars. So we're gonna add them up and find the average. So we're gonna add and then divide them by 9 books because there are 9 books. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Just double checking. But yesterday Mapping the Interior was a 3 star. Mongrels, I love this book. It was a 5 star. And my favorite by Stephen Graham Jones is Night of the Mannequins, so that was also a 5 star. Then My Heart is a Chainsaw I didn't love, so I am not gonna finish the series. So you know what? I'm not gonna include Don't Fear the Reaper because that's the 2nd book in the My Heart is a Chainsaw trilogy. I didn't like the 1st book enough to continue on. I really didn't like the main character, and I felt very like isolated from the story because it felt like reference dumping, information dumping of like horror books, horror movies, and like it just wasn't for me. So then I'm gonna do 2 stars for The Only Good Indians, and the 2 that I hated by this author are Attack of the 50-Foot Indian. It was a short story, but I just really didn't get it. And The Last Final Girl, because it was written like a movie, and so you were like reading the script and it just didn't make sense to me. I felt like I was, again, outside of the story. And then The Babysitter Lives. That one was really fun. I wish it was more of a realistic fiction type of problem. I wish we didn't quite go as like vengeful spirits as we did. I kind of wish it was more of a modern, like something in our world, not something in a different world, but that's fine. So that one was 3 stars. So that's 22 divided by 8 is 2.75. So not quite an average of 3 stars from this author. But I'm going to tell you about my 2 favorite books. So Mongrels, it says it's a coming of age novel, cultural identity, werewolves, and outsiders. And it's weird because usually I don't like creature features, but this one worked really, really well. And I remember reading about the main character and being like, oh my gosh, like my heart just was invested in this boy and his tribe. And then Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This one sounds funny, but I I literally can't tell you anything else because it's such a short novella, but it's so perfect. So Night of the Mannequins is a coming-of-age story, a slasher, and a homage to horror movies everywhere. And I completely, full-heartedly believe it. It's like these teenagers are trying to prank their friend, so they put a mannequin in the movie theater that she works at, and then the mannequin gets up and leaves on its own. And then things get very unhinged and go off the rails. I'm going to read to you why Mother Whore recommended Mr. Stephen Graham Jones. And then also down here, he recommends 3 books. So those books will not be in, maybe, I haven't read it yet, so I don't know what his recommendations are. Maybe I can get my hands on these and keep this video going until I finish I think usually they recommend 3 books. But let's talk about Stephen Graham Jones for a moment. Author Spotlight. Stephen Graham Jones has carved out a niche for himself in horror fiction. A stabby, slashy, bloody niche where his unique voice stands entirely on its own. I would love to do one of those blind taste tests and have someone give me 3 stories without a name on them. I bet I could tell you which one he wrote. He leaves fingerprints all over his work. You know, you're reading an SGJ story. If it's coming of age, the main theme is identity, and you feel crushed under the weight of your emotions. I can see that, yeah. In an interview with Uncanny Magazine, SGJ said, I just figure I am Blackfeet. So every story I tell is going to be Blackfeet. And this is true. Most of his stories are centered on the Native American experience. In 2017, I read my first SGJ book, Mapping the Interior, about a 12-year-old boy who wakes up one night and sees the ghost of his father. Junior lives on a reservation in a small home shared by his widowed mother and his brother, Dino, who is bullied all the time because he has seizures and is developmentally behind. Junior holds his little family together since the passing of his father. The ghost story felt like SGJ was reaching past the page, intentionally trying to hurt my feelings. In about 100 pages, I was broken and devastated. I can see that it didn't quite hit me as much as it hit Sadie, but I can see that about Stephen Graham Jones's work. So I agree, but not to the extent that she is making it out to be. Okay. I wanted more. Mongrels, this one is my second favorite of his, is a book about a family of werewolves isolated from other people like them. So they rely on each other to create a sense of place, culture, and identity as werewolves. The central character, a young man, is learning for himself what it meant to be who he is. Boys want to belong. They want to feel important and loved for who they are. And they want to have a place in this world. To be noticed is their goal, but not for being different in a negative way. They want to be different in a way that people celebrate. This book made my heart explode, honestly. From that moment on, SGJ was one of my favorite voices in horror. I agree with everything she said about Mongrels. So true. Whenever I see SGJ's name on an anthology table of contents, I turn to his story first. His short fiction is everything. I have to mention Dirtmouth and Father, Son, Holy Rabbit. Oh my gosh, I listened to that one in one of these, in this reading vlog. I'll link it so you can go check out that reading vlog. I can't properly explain how these stories made me feel. they're just so emotional so quickly. How does he do it? I read all of his interviews and listened to him read his work, trying to figure out. But I've decided he doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how he does it or why or where. I don't care about the mechanics. I don't need to know anything except when do I get my next SGJ fix? Okay. So I agree mostly with what she said. His horror is very emotional, and it definitely deals a lot with culture and identity, and that's something that's really special about Stephen Graham Jones. So I'm gonna read what he recommends on the bottom of this page and probably try to obtain these books somehow, probably from the library, maybe on Kindle or something. And we will just finish this vlog by me reading the 3 that he recommends. So, Stephen Graham Jones recommends, if I'm to be dispatched in some gnarly fashion, then I can go down smiling because I read Stephen King's It, which has all the magic and terror childhood packed in it. Oh my God. I don't know if I was ever gonna read it. I watched the first movie of It, but I know that there's a scene, and I'm already very disturbed by that scene, and it was in part 2 of the movie, so I didn't even see it on screen, but I know that it's in there. So I'm gonna have to think about that one. Then Gemma Files experimental film for its bright sunshiny horror. Okay, that one I think I own digitally, or at least I can get it at the library. And Whitley Steinberg's The Wolfen, which was the first time I ever got to listen to a werewolf theme. I just know that there's a trigger in It by Stephen King that I'm not comfortable reading. So maybe I'll read the other 2 books that he recommends. It is a little bit later that same night. I started experimental film by Gemma Files. I'm listening to it on Audible, and I'm not liking it. Here's the thing though. I definitely see why Stephen Graham Jones would like it, and I definitely see his inspiration behind The Last Final Girl, which was the book that I hated by him, because this is like, first off, Gemma Files is an actual like film critic in Canada, which is kind of cool. But this novel is more film critic-y of Canadian films, and like there's nothing wrong with that, but it kind of just feels like I'm listening to like non-fiction film critic telling me what to think about certain movies. I don't even know if the movies really exist or not. But she's also a teacher, and she's like a teacher teaching how to make films and how to dissect films, and it's interesting in theory but boring so far. I don't want to DNF it. I don't want to, but so far I have no like attachment to this character. Also, the character, the teacher, I don't even remember her name. She kind of gives me the ick, if I'm being real with you. Clark. Okay, Lois is her name. Clark is her son, and Clark got diagnosed with autism, and like at first I thought she was kind of low-key judging her son and saying that he's never gonna be anything special because of his diagnosis, and that kind of rubbed me the wrong way and made me feel like super not okay with this character. And then she went on to say that maybe she has autism because a lot of things that her son has could have come from her, so now she thinks she might have autism. But like, it's not about that. It's just about the films and about teaching film, and I'm so bored. I'm waiting for it to get creepy, and it's not yet. I have some things that I could do. I need to do a load of laundry. I need to finally put my laundry away. And they unloaded the dishwasher for me today, so I could start another, well, maybe not start another load, but rinse off the dishes from dinner and put them in the dishwasher and just clean up some things a little bit. So I think I'm gonna do that and listen to this audiobook a little bit more. I really want to love it, but so far I can see why other people would like it. It's just not for me. But I definitely see like where Stephen Graham Jones got his inspiration, especially for the last one, The Last Final Girl. Yeah, that one. I'm on the waiting list for it by Stephen King, which is like a 45-hour audiobook, which is terrifying. I'm also not 100% sold on ever reading that. So maybe I'll decide by the time I finish this book or read The Wolfen. That one I got on Kindle. It was really cheap, so I'm just gonna be reading it on Kindle maybe on Sunday because it's Friday night. Or we'll see when, but I would like to squeeze that in over the weekend sometime. But like I said, I have some household chores that should get done, so I'm gonna listen to more of this audiobook and I'll update you probably tomorrow. Good morning. I've been avoiding doing this final update for this vlog. And I know what you're thinking, but Alita, you had 3 more books. So, let's talk about it. The first one was Experimental Film by Gemma Files. I finished that one. And here's the thing. Personally, I didn't like it. I thought it was slow. I thought it was boring. I really, really hated. I loved Clark. Clark is the autistic son, or the son that has autism. I hated the mom. Like, I don't know if this was written in such a way that you're not supposed to like the mom, and that she was very, like, stupid when it comes to autism. I'm very sorry for using that word. I hate when people say stupid. But I absolutely hated her. I loved Clark, and I didn't... Okay, the film aspect of it, like, I get that Gemma Files is a film critic in real life. The author of this book, she's really a film critic, and I could tell. And she's probably really good at her job. But I don't like books that follow, like, films. Even if... Or, like, studying films. And this felt like a film study. It felt like we were in her perspective as she was teaching about film. And then she was having her students write about film. And then we were reading what they were writing. And it was just really, really weird and really, really stupid. And I was very, very bored. I kept waiting for the creep factor to happen because it's supposed to be a horror novel, but it never really went there for me. So personally, I'm going to give it 2 stars. However, I can see how someone like Stephen Graham Jones has gotten inspiration from reading that book. Like, I understand some of his books better. Like, the series. I didn't like the series, but I understand where he was coming from. And, like, The Last Final Girl or whatever. So I understand why people might like it. But for me, it's a no. Then, Stephen Graham Jones has recommended Wolfen, which I did buy on my Kindle, and it's only 200 pages, so I really could read it. But here's the thing. If I make myself read it, I could potentially put myself in a reading slump. So I'm going to give myself some little bit of self-care and not read it in this video. Eventually, I would like to come back and read it, but there have been a few books that I have kind of sidelined or just not read right away for reading vlogs, especially for these reading horror novels, reading vlogs, and testing what I like. So I do want to read Wolfen, but I won't be reading it anytime soon. I need a little bit of a mental break from the horror novels. And I realized that I've only read two. I read a novella, and then we talked about Stephen Graham Jones. But then the last one that Stephen Graham Jones recommended, I've gone back and forth on if I'm going to read this. And I am on the waiting list at my library, but I don't think I ever intended to read It by Stephen King. And you know, it's not even The Clown, or it's not Pennywise. Like, that part actually seems really interesting, but here's the thing. I'm about to spoil it, potentially. I know, I watched the first movie. And I hate when people compare the book to the movie and they're like, oh, I just watched the first one and that's all. But listen, I know that in the second part, like part 2 of It, is like, there are scenes that are in the book and the movie that's like children doing things. And like, if you've read or watched, then you know what things I'm talking about. And I don't want to spell it out for you any more than that, but as an educator, that makes me super uncomfortable. And I know that it's on page. I haven't read it, but I know that there are at least one scene. There's at least one scene, but I think there might be more than one scene of children, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not comfortable reading that book, and yes, I did want to read everything in the 101 horror novels to read before I'm murdered, but if something makes you uncomfortable, don't put yourself through it. I mean, that's not always true, because sometimes when you're uncomfortable or scared, it just means that you need to do it. But in this instance, this trigger warning is never, I'm never gonna be okay with that. And you can't pay me enough money to read it by Stephen King. I'm sure, like, it was written with good intent, and I'm sure it's supposed to add to the scares, but I will not put myself in that position. I think it's a million times worse because I'm an educator, but I will never be reading that book. It's like A Little Life. I know a lot of people have been making those, like, it was really popular and they were reading it to read it, but then when people found out it was like torture porn, a lot of booktubers specifically, I'm not calling anyone out in particular, but there are some that were just reading A Little Life for the crying and just to make content. And I'm never gonna be that booktuber. I'm never gonna be that booktuber who is uncomfortable or has no interest in a book and just reads it for views. So I will never be reading it. It's not on my TBR. It never will be. I can't. I'm so sorry, but Pennywise is not. No. I will watch the first part 1 of the movies because I feel like I've already seen it. I saw it in theaters. I have no interest in watching part 2, so I guess I DNF'd it. But in movie form. But I know this was like a really different kind of reading vlog because it was more kind of chatty and less reading, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel where we're always trying bookish challenges. Bye!